Hi friends, welcome to my channel. In today's session we are going to create stored procedure to perform the Crud operations. This is the table which we have to store the employees. We have columns like ID, which is primary key here, first name, last name, date of birth, email and salary. So for this we are going to create stored procedures to perform Crud operations. Click on new query. First we will create a stored procedure to read all employees. Create. Here I am mentioning schema name, here I am defining as USP. It is a user defined stored procedure. Here we have to write our select query, select star from dbo.employees with no log. Here instead of specifying all, we will specify ID, first name, last name, date of birth. So instead of specifying all, here we can specify required field names. This will be the best practice in SQL Server. You can execute now. Our stored procedure is created here. You can select the stored procedure name and click on execute. Currently we don't have data, that's why the data is not displayed here. We are going to create one more stored procedure to read the data based on ID. Read, I'll make it as get by ID. I'm going to copy it. Get employee by ID. Here we have to pass where condition, where ID equal to, here we have to pass one parameter. I'll declare parameter here at the rate ID. Data type will be integer. Here we have to declare the data type. This is the input parameter we are expecting from the user, and here we have to pass that ID. So select this and execute it. So one more stored procedure is created here, and we need another stored procedure to insert the data. Insert. Here I am going to create, I'll copy the same thing. This will be insert employee. Here we need parameter like first name. We can copy it here. First name, last name, date of birth, and here we have to declare data types. It will be varchar of 50. This length should match with our table structure. You can check it here. Varchar of 50, and last name also it's 50, and date of birth, and data type and length of the data type should match with our table. So last name also 50, and date of birth is date, and email is 50 characters, and salary is float. So now we can insert into so this is our table name. You have to pass all field names which we need to insert, and values we have to pass it here. values. I'll copy it from here. This order should match. First field will be first name, then it should be first name here, last name, date of birth, email and salary. It should match with the columns which we mentioned in the insert query. These are all the columns, these are all the values which we are expecting from the user. Select the store procedure, execute it, it's created. And then we have to create another store procedure to update the data. This is going to be update. Here along with these first name, last name, date of birth, email and salary, we need another input ID. So based on ID only we are going to update the row. ID, this data type will be integer. So before updating we have to check whether that ID is valid or not. For that I'll declare one variable here, integer. I'll set the value as 0. First I have to check whether the data is available with that ID or not. For that I'll write a select query here, select here we have to pass ID. Whether this ID is valid or not we have to check. For that we are writing the select query where we are validating this ID. So if any data is available we will get 1 here, otherwise we will get the 0. So if it is 1 then only we will update the data, otherwise we will not update it. And one more thing we have to add here is we have to check is there any error in the query. For that I will try begin try and I'll add it as end try. So like in C# how we will write try catch, here SQL also we can use the try catch here. Here I have to write begin catch and end catch. Here I can roll back the transaction if there is any error. Suppose if row count is greater than 0, that means this ID is valid, then I have to update the record. Begin transaction, commit transaction. Here we have to write our update query. Update employees set. Here we have to update the values. I'll copy these things here. And we have to pass where condition here, where ID equal to @ID. Here we have to pass comma. Yes. Like this in insert query also we have to check is there any error. For that begin try and it's going to end here and try begin catch and end catch. If there is any error, then roll back the transaction. Begin transaction, and after inserting we have to commit the transaction. So we have to alter this. Execute it. Now we have to create update one, execute it, and finally we have to write another stored procedure for deletion. I'll write it here. Delete. Here we are going to pass only ID to delete the record. So here also I am going to check row count. If row count is greater than 0, then only I am going to delete the data. Delete from table where ID is passed by the user. Execute. So here we have created all the stored procedure. This is the stored procedure which we are going to read all the employees from the employee table, and this is the stored procedure which we created for to read the data based on the ID, which is primary key in the employees table, and this is the stored procedure which we created for insert. So we are going to pass all these parameters to insert the data. So before inserting, we are checking if there is any error, it will roll back the transaction. So if there is no error, then it will be committing here. And here one more stored procedure which we are going to use it for update purpose. So this is also similar to insert. Here we are going to pass the ID. So based on the ID, we are going to check whether this ID is valid or not. If there is any record available with this ID, then we are going to store the value as row count, and if row count is greater than 0, then we are going to update the employees table, which is ID passed by the user. And finally we are going to use this stored procedure for deletion purpose. So based on the ID, we are going to delete the data. Here also, before deleting the record, we are checking whether this ID is valid or not. If it is valid, we are going to delete the record and we are going to commit the transaction. If there is any error while performing this operation, we are going to roll back the transaction. All this stored procedure is stored inside the programmability. Expand the stored procedures. So these are all the stored procedures we have created now. Now we will try to execute one by one. First we will check is there any data available in this table. Currently we don't have any data. First we will try to insert the data here. So to insert the data, we have to call this stored procedure. So this is the stored procedure name. I am going to click on new query here. Here we have to pass parameters like first name, last name, date of birth, email and salary. For that I am going to add first name here, and then we have to pass date of birth here. It should be year and month, then it will be date, then we have to pass email and salary. And finally salary, we have to pass it here. I'll pass it like this. So these are all the string values, that's why I am passing inside the single quotes, and date also we have to pass it inside the single quote. This is float which we can pass directly. To execute the stored procedure, we can use the exec. So here we have to select our database as crud with ado.net. This is the database which we are going to use it for insert the data. So our employees table is available inside the crud with ado.net database. We'll execute now. Click on execute. One row affected. We will check the table now. Execute here. So our data has been successfully inserted to table by using stored procedure. Now we will call our stored procedure to get all the data. Like this, we will insert another record here. I am executing again. Now we have two records. This ID is primary key. Now we will execute this stored procedure to read all the employees. To read the all employees, we are going to call this stored procedure. Here we can call it as exec, execute this stored procedure name, and select this and execute. So we are getting the data from the database. That means our stored procedure is working fine. Also, without using execute also, we can execute the stored procedure, select the stored procedure name and click on execute. So it will work fine. But for better understanding, you can use execute and you can select here and execute it. Like this, we will test another stored procedure which we have to get the data based on the ID. So this is the stored procedure name. Here we are going to test it, our stored procedure name. Here I am going to pass ID. It is expecting ID here. I can pass 1004. I need the data which is having ID 1004. Select this query, execute here. So we are able to read the data which is having ID as 1004. I will test it another record 1003. So I am able to read the data based on the ID also. Next we will test the stored procedure which we used for update. So update also expecting these parameters like ID, first name, last name, date of birth and email, salary. I'll copy these details from here and I am going to update the data of 1003. For that I can use it execute, and here I have to pass ID first, then I can pass first name, last name and all. So I am copying here. So instead of David, I am updating with some other data. I am going to update the employee ID which is having 1003. Execute here. So row affected, one row affected. We will try to get the data of 1003. Execute now. So these data are updated based on the ID and the latest details which we provided to the stored procedure. Now we will test final stored procedure which we used for deletion. We'll copy the stored procedure name here. This is also expecting parameter ID. Execute. Here it is expecting the input parameter as ID. So we have two records here, 1003 and 1004. I am going to delete the ID which is having 1004. Select the stored procedure and execute it. So it's deleted here. We'll check the records from the database now. Execute. Currently we have the one record because we have deleted record which is having 1004. So now we will try to execute again 1004. Click on execute. Command completed successfully. Because we don't have any records, that's why we have not received any confirmation message like one row affected. So like this we can create stored procedures to perform the CRUD operations in SQL Server. That's it for today. If you like this video, please like and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.